Have you ever been running or swimming or exercising and you felt a cramp on your right side? Chances are, despite what your high school PE coach told you, that raising your arms above your head or drinking less water before you exercise is not going to get rid of that cramp. And here's why. It's not a cramp at all. In other words, you can get rid of side cramps doing physiological sighs during activities, in particular during running activities. A physiological sigh is a pattern of breathing that involves 2 inhales followed by an extended exhale. You can do physiological sighs voluntarily anytime you're feeling too stressed and you want to feel more calm. You do it like this. So it's a double inhale, and typically the first inhale is longer than the second, but the second one is still important to do. And then a very long extended exhale. Typically both inhales are through the nose and the exhale is through the mouth. That's the most effective way to do the physiological sigh. However, if you can't breathe through your nose or your mouth for whatever reason, do it all through your mouth or all through your nose. The second inhale is really important because your lungs are not just 2 big bags of air. They're 2 big bags of air with lots of little sacs, millions of sacs. And if you were to lay out those sacs, their volume is as big as a tennis court. And that allows both the intake of more oxygen, but also the offload of carbon dioxide. So when you do the double inhale, it reinflates any of these little sacs that have collapsed. And in doing so, it allows you to offload more carbon dioxide. The physiological sigh has some other very useful applications. One of the more I would say useful ones, at least to those of you that exercise, is going to be the use of physiological sigh in order to remove the so-called side stitch. So if you've ever been running or swimming or exercising and you felt a cramp on your right side, chances are, despite what your high school PE coach told you, that raising your arms above your head or drinking less water before you exercise is not going to get rid of that cramp. And here's why. It's not a cramp at all. If you recall the cervical 3, 4, and 5 nerves that give rise to the phrenic nerve and go down and innervate your diaphragm, well, as I mentioned before, a certain number of those nerve fibers actually course into the diaphragm and go up underneath. And if you recall earlier, I also said that the diaphragm sits right on top of the liver. In other words, you actually have sensory innervation of the diaphragm, the deep diaphragm, and the liver. And there's something called referenced pain, which is what people generally experience when they have that side stitch on their right-hand side. So if you're ever exercising and you feel a cramp on your right-hand side, it's possible that it's a genuine cramp, but more likely is the fact that that phrenic nerve sensory innervation is now being carried up to your brain and you are detecting some local or referenced pain in the liver and in the diaphragm. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong, although you might not be breathing properly for running at that moment, and that's what gave rise to it. It could be some spasming of the phrenic nerve or some inefficient breathing during running. The point for now is that if ever you're experiencing that right side stitch, I encourage you to perform the physiological sigh, and the good news is you can perform it while still running or while cycling or any type of activity. If you perform that physiological sigh generally 2 or 3 times, what will occur is that because of changes in the firing of the phrenic nerve, and in particular because of changes in the sensory feedback from the sensory component of the phrenic nerve back to the brain, you will experience an alleviation of the pain from that right side stitch. In other words, you can get rid of side cramps doing physiological sighs during activities, in particular during running activities.